Huh.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
not too bad yourself.
Not too bad. Hey, I don't know what happened the first time. I didn't get anything.
I think to be completely honest, I think I had to put my account to public,
Okay, okay.
and then it allowed me.
Gotcha. Good to see you.
Good to see you
Hey,
too.
how long has it been?
It's been a little bit, that's for sure.
Couple years?
At least,
At least couple years, huh?
at least.
Hey, can I ask, and I was thinking about this today, what is this your third year at York?
Going into my fourth, yeah,
Fourth year? Oh my goodness.
yeah. I know. I know. I started with you when I was, geez, I was peewee. So what's that? Grade seven?
Maybe. You're like 7, 8. Grade
Yeah,
7, 8. Oh
yeah.
yeah. How was that? Are you taking any summer classes at York or are you taking it
Independent study actually.
independent study?
Yeah.
What are y'all doing? Are you
We
doing some
were
research?
looking at the effects of warm up on high power activity. So
Okay. What?
pretty relevant.
Yeah, yeah. What hype? Anything in particular?
No, any
No.
sport.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you picked your courses for September?
Nah, the 30th that happened, so I still
Okay.
got a few days.
Gotcha. Gotcha. How does that work? You just get a window, and
Yeah,
then
exactly.
you jump on.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's everything with the online courses last semester?
Not too bad. I mean, you kind of work through it, but it's not too bad.
Yeah. What are they all online? Is the
Pretty
department
much.
saying? Yeah, same with us.
Pretty much.
Same with us. Yeah, just finishing off my summer courses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, just actually finish an exam.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just very interesting doing exams online, and it takes a little bit getting used to.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's wait another minute. We'll let people join in,
Sure.
and yeah, we'll get started as people come in. We'll just have them if they have questions for us. We'll see them.
Okay.
Sometimes I just get into the conversation. I'll go through it and I'll look and I'll forget. And if you
Yeah.
see something, you jump right on. If I see something, I'll jump right on. So we'll try and make it interactive.
Perfect.
But we'll just chat you and I for probably for about 30, 45 minutes, right around there.
Sounds good.
Yeah. In regards to training, are you guys have a summer training program?
Kind of. I mean, tracks are just starting to open up. Thank God.
Yeah.
But luckily, we're in a sport where as long as you have a flat piece of ground, that's good enough.
Yeah. Are
Uh,
you focusing more on the long jump or did you add the other jumps too?
Still long jump,
Long
triple
jump.
jump. I don't know if you remember, I broke my leg.
Oh, did you break your leg?
Yes, around grade 9, grade 10.
Yo, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, I thought
So
okay, yeah.
I've had 2 operations on it, so I don't think you'll be able to hold triple jump.
Okay. Okay.
So just kind of erring on the side of caution.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we get started? So welcome everyone to our Thursday Instagram live. Michael and I are just chatting. We're catching up. So everyone, this is Michael Miglietta. Michael Miglietta is fourth year university student athlete at York University in Toronto, track and field athlete,
Mm-hmm.
but has an awesome kind of path in regards to where he is now. So we're catching up. It's been a couple of years, maybe 3 years since we chatted.
Mm-hmm.
But I always appreciated our chats and been thinking about you in between then and now. And I think it's a good time for us just to make this a little bit more formal. We've had chats, you and I, outside of recording it and putting it
Mm-hmm.
online, but I thought it's a great opportunity to be able to get you together, get us together and just kind of chat. And we're going to flow back and forth, but people who are on with us, if you have questions, throw them out there. Michael and I will get to them, and we'll make this as interactive as possible. So I want to start off with that path that I mentioned in your path, because for you and I, we started quite a few years back, but you were a goalie in hockey,
Yeah.
and now you are a fourth-year university student in track and field.
Yeah.
So help me as well, catching me up, but also helping the people that are out there with your path from hockey to track.
Yeah. So actually, until university, I was pretty much primarily a hockey athlete. Did pretty much nothing else as a goalie. Grade 4 was when I started actually playing competitive hockey as a double A.
Mm-hmm.
And then just made my way up into AAA, and looking at Division I schools for hockey and all that throughout high school. And then just some turn of events caused a little bit of a change, and now I'm here as a track athlete, something I never thought, but yeah.
Yeah. And for people that don't know about the level of hockey, so you played at the highest level of hockey pretty well from that grade 4, rather than grade 4, grade 5, all the way to the end of high school.
Yeah.
Right. So you had a good, what is that, 6-7 years at least, right? Right around there?
Yeah, about pretty much.
And super talented goaltender, and we've had several conversations because we played the same position about the mental skills and the sports psychology of goaltending.
Yeah.
And then you made that transition. And I remember, we had some brief chats about making that transition on the track.
Yeah.
Can you tell people just some of the challenges? Like, you switch sports, and that's unique, right? At your age and level. Like, that's, to me, still thinking about that time, that's a really interesting transition.
Yeah, well, the transition started pretty much from grade 12. I was playing junior A.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so everything was going well, but I knew I didn't want to play another year of junior just because I always put school first.
Right.
So I pushed the Division I to go into Division I. And so because of that age gap, you know how they want everybody, goalies especially 21, 22.
Yeah.
18-year-old goalie coming in, you're not really getting a full scholarship. So that left me in a position of, I had a half scholarship. I want to go down to the States and, $100,000 in debt by the time I'm done, which is not something I was looking forward to. Or do I go to university and just see what kind of pops up there?
Right.
So I decided to go to university, and so the head coach of York hockey was actually a coach of mine for several years, Russ Harrington.
Okay.
He coached me in grade 6 when I was at the Markham Majors, and then in grade 9 with the Coyotes.
Okay.
So
you were familiar with the coach of the university team.
Very.
But the hockey university.
Exactly. Hockey. So I talked to him, and he was the same deal, kind of, 2021. I know what you can do, but we don't need a goalie right now. So first year university, I didn't do anything.
Okay.
Just school and practicing with the crease and all that stuff.
And we were talking before people jumped in. So you are a kinesiology major, right?
Yes.
Right from the very start. Right?
Yes.
So first year you declared kin, and you've taken it right all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And so my dad had a background in track and field. He won 2 U Sport Golds, junior Pan Am team. So he had a background in long jump and track and field.
Right.
So he kind of saw that, I was drifting my competitiveness too much to school because I didn't have that outlet anymore.
Okay.
So I was becoming hyper competitive in school in a way that was detrimental. So he kind of tossed out the suggestion, hey, why don't we know you have raw talent in your power and your athleticism. Why don't I train you for a few months and let's see what happens? And that's kind of how the transition began into what it is. But for me, the biggest difference is the fact that, as a goalie, how it doesn't matter how you stop the puck as long as you stop the puck.
Right.
So, but now in a sport where biomechanically, there is only really one way to do something, to do it like at the maximal efficiency.
Yeah.
So mentally, you had to kind of switch aspects of, hockey, you're worried about situational awareness, who's behind me on the off post, where's the D at, where ends the puck being dumped in. Now you have to think of, okay, my leg was 2 inches too far to the right. I need to pull it in close to the midline. And just, it's a lot more minute changes over a lot shorter period of time. than what hockey is in terms of the actual play.
Yeah. Well said. Well,
Yeah,
it's almost like a description in
exactly.
regards to, not even, you don't even have to know both of those sports to kind of understand that it is a change, and being able to understand these changes, and you and I would more so towards hockey, but it's that awareness, right?
Exactly.
Your awareness as an athlete and your surroundings, and being able to adjust to those. And
Exactly.
it sounds like those adjustments that you had to make, kind of mentally, but also physically.
Yeah.
That was a transition that you had to. It sounds like work on, and try
Oh,
to
for sure.
master.
Well, I remember at first being like, okay, so when I'm in that, I would remember, listening to the player skates, where people are at behind me, listening to their sticks. Okay, peripheral vision, where's everyone around me? But now in track, you got to be so tunnel focused. You don't want to be thinking about what a person next to you is doing. You don't want to be thinking about, something that's happening 2 feet to your right. You have to. It's a complete opposite. You got to be so tunnel focused. So to switch that off in my mind, what I've been doing for 11 odd years, now to
Right.
switch that off was definitely a learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your credit in regard to that transition, because it's not easy. And I'm thinking about, within sports where a person changes a position, between sports, call them those two sport athletes, and some, they play more than two sports,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to make that transition and work on making that transition. And you're giving a great sort of picture for everyone. In one sport, you got to be almost kind of like, so aware of your external, like all your senses are elevated to
Yeah.
collect data, where this one's like, I just need to collect this data, and
Yeah.
all this other information may not be helpful for me to be able to perform.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there's a lot going on at a track meet.
Yes. Well, you got to, other events going on, the guns going off for starters, people cheering, that's the other thing of, it might even be more hectic in one way of looking at it, because of you have so many other events going on, and so many people, and so many attentions, not just on yourself.
Right.
So to have to, block that out and be like, okay, just focus on you and literally the 5 seconds I'm competing.
Right.
That's completely different from having to, like I said before, of being in the net and kind of, I remember in practice even, that we talked about a little bit of closing your eyes and just hearing the person, okay, he's on my off post, hearing people calling out for the puck. It's totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you mentioned, just those differences, are there any differences in regards to kind of getting ready for competition? My head's going like, envision you in competition. I'm thinking about the pre-comp. Like, is there a different pre-competition kind of plan now as a track athlete?
Totally. So in terms of the physical side, your warm-up's way longer. So your warm-up for hockey, you go jog with the team, some stretches, that type of stuff. Then you get in the change room and change and come out on the ice, do your skate. But my warm-up before track meets probably an hour and a half.
Okay.
Just the actual warm-up, preparing the body and all that stuff. In terms of the mental side of things, which we talked about when I was a goalie of, I would become, in the change room, like too chatty almost.
Mm-hmm.
And that would divert my focus from the actual game. In terms of track, I find it's the opposite. I find that if I'm not, kind of joking around with people, keeping things loose, relaxed, all that stuff, I find that you tense up too much. And so in a sport where the idea is to stay as loose as possible while generating as much power as possible, you want to avoid tensing up as much as possible.
Yeah. And this is as you're mentioning this, I'm thinking of our time together, but I'm just thinking about just athletes talking about getting ready for their sport.
Yeah.
And this is where at least the preparation side is so different for the individual athlete with those different sports.
Yeah.
And you have to find whatever that recipe is, right? You have you as the person, your personality within a position and role within that sport. And for one, you have to get ready differently to be successful.
Yeah.
And you have to work on that just to kind of figure yourself as a hockey player and goalie.
Exactly.
You're playing a different sport where you're saying, well, I can't be the same athlete I was 4 years ago.
No.
Because that's not going to help me out be the best athlete that I can be within my sport right now.
Exactly. And so that was definitely in part of the transition was, you know, so much of my identity was a high-level hockey goalie. And so to go from such a peak in a sport to now starting something new in pretty much an age where people don't expect you to start something new and to perform at a high level, you know, it did have to take a second to be like, oh, you have to almost push, you know, the other side of you in terms of hockey. You have to like push it aside,
right?
And say, you know what? Am I going to be the worst right now because I just started at 20 years old? Yes, I am not going to be the greatest. And you have to just commit to building yourself, not just physically, but also mentally. And that was a big thing of me, reconfiguring the warm-up from what I was so used to now fitting something in a different sport.
Yeah. And again, and I don't know where all the people are that are listening. They could be in Canada, they could be in the States or somewhere else in the world. But for Michael's level, he's a university athlete. These are the highest level athletes for your age group.
Yeah.
In that sport, right? So it's not like you're coming into a recreational. No, it's the highest level for your age group in your sport.
Yeah, the only higher would be Olympians, but they're not at school.
Right. So just a picture of what you were attempting and have done is to make a transition from a high level athlete in one sport, who could have played hockey in university, to a whole new sport. Yeah. Right. And here's where I want to go with this in regards to the link, because right now people are coming back to their sport. Mm-hmm. And before people jumped on, we were talking a little bit about track and field, like gyms and the track and field centers opening up soon, or they're already opened up. But what could you tell others that helped you out when you were making a transition to sport that could be helpful for athletes now as they come back from a 3-4 month layoff back to their sport?
Well, for me, like I said, I think the main thing is you got to push ego aside. So if you were an athlete who necessarily wasn't working out heavily during this time, you have to recognize and be okay with the fact that you're not going to be that athlete that just left 4 months ago. So if you get on the ice, on the court, on the track, whatever, and you're not at where you think you should be or where you were, that's not a reason to A, get discouraged, or B, get frustrated with yourself. So for me, it was if you push that ego aside for me and be like, recognize that, okay, I got to start off in something I've never done before in my life and try to build up. If you push that ego aside and allow yourself to do that, I find that not only will you get to where you'll get to where you were quicker, but you'll eventually get past where you were as well.
Yeah, well said. And you're mentioning this, and again, I'm going to bring it back as a highly competitive person, right? You still are. You were that in that transition. You were as a hockey player. Yeah. So you're trying to learn something or trying to get into the sport at a high level where you're highly competitive. You're used to really good results for you in your sport. Yeah. Right. Well, so I think those are really important sort of lessons, those key parts to pull away from what you just said, is that it's not going to be where you were before. No, you got to acknowledge that it's not. I would also add in, if you're not going to be frustrated, I'd be surprised, because you're not where you were. Yeah. However, you have to acknowledge, quickly accept it to be able to move. And then the hope is that you get past, and you won't even know if you keep on doing it, you won't even know when you get past it. Like you'll just be in that process, and you'll be hopefully better. More than likely you'll be better without even really kind of putting that pressure on oneself. Exactly. Well, that's important.
The very first meet I had in November of not last year, the year before, came dead last by like a meter.
Is this your first one ever? Okay, first track and field meet at university level.
Yeah, came dead last by a meter. Everybody was laughing. It was terrible. And on the ride back, I'm thinking like, 6 months ago, I'm with NHL players, practicing with them.
Right.
I was having calls from schools like Boston College and UMass Law, in Division I hockey. I'm like, 6 months ago, I was the cream of the crop.
Right.
And now I'm at the very bottom. You can't get any worse. And I got to the point where it's almost like, why bother?
Right.
Why bother try to do this transition for the purpose of what? But eventually, I made the decision of, you know what? I can't get any worse. So you might as well just stick with it and keep trying and just see where it takes you.
Yeah. And you mentioned this, and at that time, it's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you mentioned it. You're not used to. There's people who are looking. They're making comments. You're not doing as well. You're right. The numbers. You know where you are, and it's humbling. Like that ego piece of you. I mean, like it's a humbling experience.
Very.
But it's what you do with it that's extremely important.
Of course.
Right. But again, and I love that you said it. It's very genuine. You had those thoughts like, man, what is it really worth it?
Honestly, I remember sending a text to my dad being like, and I remember vividly saying, this is the worst athletic performance I've had in my life.
Wow.
After I finished, I remember sending that to him.
Wow.
Because I was, so caught up in the moment, that feeling of being, I'm supposed to be, like I said, the cream of the crop in terms of athletics. I'm supposed to be that guy that other people are, doing worse than, not the other way around.
Right.
So immediately after the competition, it was very frustrating and very discouraging. But it was just a matter of, again, on the car ride home of being, just thinking about, okay, what went wrong? And is this going to be a case of, do we continue with it or do we just push it aside? And so in terms of the team, what we have is for people walking onto the team, after your first meet, if you don't hit a certain standard, you get cut from the team.
Oh, so doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter
unless you're recruited. There's some wiggle room. But if in terms of a walk-on, like I was, if you don't make a certain standard, sorry. And I was well below that standard. But my coach took me aside and he said, look, I know you're transitioning sports. I know you have talent. So let's just stick with it. And so for him to pull me aside and say that to me in a time when I thought, okay, I gave my shot, but this is it though, I think gave me that little nudge of, okay, let's stick with it.
Yeah. And I love it. And I'm not going to go off the rails here, but on Thursdays, we've been doing these IG chats, athletes, coaches, but the athletes, everyone that I've talked to, the path in their sport is never like the rocket ship.
No.
None of them. Right. And every athlete so far on Thursday, high level, university, pro, that this is the caliber in regards to the athlete who's been coming on, is they have to get information from others to help them.
For sure.
Right? Because it's too hard in your own head at times just to get all that information, trying to analyze and make sense of it. You're too far into it. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to be able to get those trusted people to give you information. They're not just trying to make you feel better.
Yeah.
Right? Solely, but they're saying, okay, this is what needs to be done. And I'm here to support you. And it sounds like coach at that time, whoever that coach was, really did a nice job, it felt like, to help you through those beginning moments.
Oh, well, definitely. At the tryout, the first tryout, I went up to him and I said, look, never did track and field in my life. These are my raw numbers. Put me through some paces. I'm a pretty athletic guy, transition sports. We'll see what happens, kind of deal. But definitely him sticking with that and committing to the process of not just trying to, mentally transition from a sport, but also physically. My body type was way different from a normal track athlete. It definitely helped me. And one of my training partners, a fourth-year student at the time, he definitely, played a bit of a mentor role, being, don't worry about it, just stick with the process, stick with the training. Which again, like you said, when you have people to pull on for information like that, even for me, who I'm not an athlete that needs massive amounts of, you're doing great, or you're doing fantastic.
Right.
Even
Right.
just a word or two. That's
Yeah.
all. And then when you can just pull a word or two from people, that's plenty.
Yeah. But like, and again, you're making me think about previous conversations on Thursdays, the mentorship piece.
Yeah.
One is allowing yourself to be mentored.
Yeah.
And number two, finding who that right person is.
Yeah.
Right. And you hear the successful athletes when they're a few years younger than that older athlete really, really kind of be taken under their wing, but they allow themselves that opportunity to learn from, get encouraged by, and your story is very similar.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking as people start coming back, like these are really helpful pieces that someone, as they return back, can take in and say, well, maybe I'm going to talk to coach to get some feedback at the end of practice. Maybe in months past or years past, maybe I haven't, but it might be helpful too.
Yeah.
Maybe I do mentor someone or get mentored by someone just to be able to have that relationship that I can start to get back into my sport and feel comfortable in it.
Yeah.
And
exactly. And, that's something I didn't necessarily have with hockey, just because of the fact that either you're all the same age, there's not a lot of mentoring, or when I got to the junior A and Division I level, people already expected you to be good enough to be there, that, not that you were cast aside, but it's like, you're here, you better show up to perform.
Right.
In terms of when people on my track team start to hear, my lack of experience in the sport, and, the fact that I'm transitioning from a completely different one, that definitely, I think, opened the door for people to start lending a hand.
Right.
So, like we said originally, of pushing that ego aside and allowing people to, give you a hand once in a while, that has to be the first step for the mentorship to actually begin.
Yeah, 100%. And then a constant theme recently has been the person being open-minded to the help.
Yeah.
And I think that's another one as people come back. You got to be open-minded to the help and the change that's going to happen. And again, it's people are going to come back and it's going to be challenging because they haven't been in that environment for months. It's almost like it's an off season, a prolonged one. It's a really long injury that you're coming back from. And this is important because I have not heard an athlete ever come back from injury and say, I don't want to be, get back to where I was.
Exactly.
Right. So this is pretty important stuff that you're talking about because people, I know, want to get back to a certain level. It's just taking these bits and pieces that you're mentioning and putting it into their plan as they come back.
Exactly. And then, I think that I kind of used, when I originally broke my leg, that idea of getting back into the sport as kind of like a precursor of, okay, let's pull on what I had to use there mentally to try to work back in. So I think if people have had an injury that they've sustained, minor or severe, just know what you had to think about when you were going through that, so that you kind of put yourself in the same headspace of, I'm not 100%, we got to work back to it.
Yeah, 100%. Any other sort of mental skills from what you used in the past to help you during that transition, or ones that you learned as you took on the sport of track and field?
I definitely think, in terms of the ones I would have used in hockey that I transitioned back over, would definitely been just like, the typical stuff of being, don't let yourself get down, keep pushing through, trust your coaches, like stuff like that, where you have to put trust in people and yourself to keep moving forward. Like for the Crease Bouillard, he was my coach for 12 years. So the idea of transitioning to another coach in a completely different sport was pretty much foreign to me. At points I didn't want to accept it, and B, I didn't, like it. So, but you just have to trust that the people who are training you are doing it properly and know what they're doing in order to get you to the level you want.
Right. Right. And as you say that, it feels like it's a genuine trust.
Yes.
Right. It's not something that people just say, trust yourself and trust others. It's like,
no,
man, that's work. Like, you got to work to trust someone else. Like,
no.
it's a relationship.
Oh, 100%, especially in track and field. Like, Booyah I would see once a week, my goalie coach. But in track and field, I see my coach every day of the week. I travel with them everywhere. We go to the same hotels. We at this, I see my coach outside my family. I probably see my coach more than anybody else.
Wow.
In the world.
Right.
So I have to know that when we're at practice or we're at a competition, that when he tells me something, I have to be aware that it's for my benefit, and trust that the decision he's making is for the benefit. Like, the main thing for long jump is, we pace out how many steps we run towards the board. And so a lot of people do that by, foot one after the other. And so my approach is, for example, 112 paces with feet.
Okay.
But some meets, you have more adrenaline, you got to move further back. You have less adrenaline, you got to move in. And so it's a responsibility of the coach to tell you how far to move back, if at all.
Okay.
The idea of the athlete is not to look or to pay attention to that stuff.
Okay.
So there's times where I've thought of, I have a lot of adrenaline. I think we should move back in my approach, give myself more runway. And he would be like, no, you stay where you are. And so it's, as an athlete, you have to be, almost relinquish that control part a little bit and say, look, this person's been in it for years. He trains athletes to extremely high levels. I have to trust that what he is saying and his decision is better than my decision right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that trust for me is key.
Hey, can I ask you, and just wanting to know a little bit more about the sport, is there conversation between jumps?
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's actually the big thing that I had to, when we speak about transition, it was a massive thing, because, in hockey, the higher and higher level you get, the game's so quick. You have at most 45 seconds to a minute, maybe, if you're on a power play, you might get that time to rest. In terms of track, I have 6 jumps. All take about 10 seconds at the most. And in between each jump, I have about 20 minutes.
Okay. Wow.
So in between that time, your team, if mostly you chat with teammates, if you're competing against teammates, you might chat with some other competitors if you know them well. But the idea of completing a jump, regardless if it's a fault or if it's a legal jump, okay, I have to calm myself down, get mentally prepared for the next one, and continue forward. While in hockey, when I was playing junior A in Division 1, you're not stopping. You're never out of that moment of being mentally focused. Well, for this, you have to be okay with coming out of it and slipping back in.
Yeah. That, and again, just kind of going back and forth between sports. So a goalie, you might have the time, but it's short. Those short bursts. But this is just a longer period of time. But time is the key factor here, a variable that you got to work with the time that's given.
Yeah.
Right. And that's an important piece. And it sounds like for you as a track athlete, you have a plan after jumps that allow you to get ready for that next jump.
Yeah.
And can I bring the coach back in? Does coach come into that?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. So comes or she comes into the actual between jump routine.
Yeah. So for me personally, and even when I was in hockey, I always look at things very analytically instead of feel. Mm-hmm. So in between each jump, your coach can video the jump, and you can analyze the video with your coach. So in between jumps, there's been times where I spent 3 to 4 minutes speaking with my coach, talking about what I'm doing wrong and what I have to get right.
Okay.
I can then walk away from him. I can come back to him. So it's very fluid in terms of how he can play into it. It's all depending on the athlete themselves, what they want to pull from it. Unlike in hockey, where, especially as a goalie, I'm stuck in the net the whole time. And the information I do get is either my coach yelling at me for me either screwing up or something. Or a player coming by telling me the coach said something, or your partner coming off the bench. Your goalie partner coming off the bench. Those are the three forms of communication.
Yeah. And it feels like at times the track and field part,
yes,
it has a little different. It almost kind of feels like you have a little bit more control over whatever comes next.
For sure. I know the big thing for me was, when I went to track, the idea of playing through injuries isn't nowhere near as substantial as it is in hockey. I remember in the first year or something, I had my hip flexor all tensor bandage up. Like, it was a bad injury, but because of hockey, if you don't play, it doesn't matter what injury you have. If you're not playing, you're not getting ice time the next game.
Right.
So the idea of, again, trusting your coach for him to say, no, it's okay, you don't have to practice now, or no, it's okay, you don't have to compete now, instead of going from a sport where if you don't compete, they'd always threaten you there's somebody willing to take your place if you're not willing to get on the ice.
Right. Yeah, that motivation. It doesn't always help with the pressure piece.
Exactly.
But now it seems like, and quite possibly that relationship with your coach too, and feeling that trust with him.
Yeah.
And building up over time allows you to understand, and for him to understand where you're coming from, and where you're going with him in regards to your relationship. So
exactly.
It sounds like you really formed a good bond with the coach that you have right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, before we get, I kind of want to hear about the season from last year and maybe the next steps for this coming season. But for those who are with us, if you have questions for Michael and I, throw them out there. Just put them in the comment area, and we'll get to those. So feel free, everyone who's with us, that if you have questions for us, you let us know. But I didn't ask before we got on. Did your season? Were you able to complete your track season, or was it cut short?
In terms of, for varsity, unfortunately, it's only an indoor season.
Okay.
It runs from January to mid-March.
Okay.
So we were able to complete the season pretty much a week before, women's hockey youth sport got canceled.
Okay.
Then some other youth sport championships got canceled. So we were pretty much the last championship to finish their season.
Okay. So you got yours in.
Yeah.
In regards to the kind of next steps for you all, where's your sport in regards to coming back to play?
Well, so a lot of us have pretty much been training from even the off when we got off, training 6 days a week as if we were competing. And you just can become inventive with this exercises you do. And like I said before, as long as you have a flat piece of ground, you can run. But in terms of actual practices back at a track, some public tracks are already open now because of the provincial stuff. But our main track, the Toronto Track and Field Center, they're planning to open up within the next little while.
Okay.
Some of us have heard July 6th or so. It's within the next little bit.
Okay.
And
so it's coming.
It's coming. It's only a matter of time now, but it's coming. Yeah.
And then the university season. So are there any sort of plans or people made decisions on the fall season, or is it still?
Well, the fall season, unfortunately, all fall sports have been canceled.
Oh, they have been.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's a decision that's been made.
Luckily, we don't get affected by that.
Okay.
So as of right now, we would be training as if there is a season until another decision gets made around mid-October.
Okay.
But yeah, in terms of fall athletes, all varsity fall sports have been canceled.
Gotcha. Hey, you were helping with headsets when we were creating it way
Yeah.
back when, right?
Yeah.
So you understand the system and helped us out kind of with the development of it in regards to use and feedback. In regards to your level in the sports that you played, do you see there being an opportunity for athletes to get some benefit from it?
Oh, well, yeah, without a doubt. And I like we were pretty much the whole conversation. I have the benefit of seeing two different sports at a high level. And so I can see the benefit of team sports and individual sports as well. So regardless of the sport you play, whether it be team or individual, hockey, basketball, whatever, I always say that my trainers brought me to 10% of the goalie I was, while you brought me the other 90. So the mental side of any sport is by far the most important. Because no matter how good physically you are, if you can't show up to perform on that day, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So
right.
the idea of having, especially for varsity athletes or higher end athletes, where you're traveling a lot of the time, of having a mobile, quote unquote, sports psychologist with you has a tremendous benefit to it.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we were thinking of when we started the concept and had you try it and ran it by you for feedback, was that, yeah, this is the highly competitive athlete who he or she does have time. Even though you are super busy now, student athlete, you were super busy before as a student athlete in a different sport, but there still is time to work on it. And I've known you outside of headset. And one thing I can say about our time together, you always did the work.
Yeah.
And my friend, I appreciate that and hopefully I mentioned it to you way back when. You were always prepared and you always did the work and you allowed yourself to get feedback, just kind of like what you do now. Like you're just taking those principles into what you're doing now. So to me, that is a big part to your success. And I think that's something that athletes should do. Hopefully it is with headset and it's something that could help people, but even if it's not, you got to track how you train and how you perform. You have to.
Yeah,
100%.
Exactly.
Hey, can I ask what so you got a year coming up? The hope is that it happens. You have that January time. I know it's a little ways away. What comes next? Is there, for school-wise or athletic-wise, are you looking, or is it just solely focused on what you have coming up this year?
In terms of athletics, after a year and a half of training for me, I just missed out on nationals by one spot.
Okay.
So the idea is that this season we actually get in and, make a push for the youth sport podium.
Okay.
And then academically, fourth year, it's a big year, deciding year. I'm looking to get into physiotherapy and all that type of stuff. So it's a point of, you're training 4 hours a day, but you're in school 3 and you got to do homework for 3. So,
right.
Time's a bit limited in terms of your social life, but that's okay.
Yeah. And again, it didn't seem, in regards to where you were before too, it's those sacrifices.
Exactly.
But it does feel like when you're able to perform and train like you want to, like it really feels like your development as an athlete over the last few years, there's a sense of that. Yeah, like I'm doing something here that's really kind of something I can lean back on, right? It's almost like something that you can really feel kind of that proud. Like I guess pride might be the right word, is like something you can feel proud of in regards to the work.
Well, it's also, by going into a sport that I had zero expectation of, the ability to feel a bit looser about how you performed and chalk it up to inexperience, I think allowed me to grow as an athlete quicker than what I experienced in hockey. Because like you said, from a young age in hockey, I always played the highest level. So you always had that standard of, perfection of not letting a goal in.
Mm-hmm.
So by having an ability almost like not sit back and relax, but allow yourself to once in a while to screw up,
right.
to allow yourself to make a mistake instead of getting upset that you let in a bad goal or something.
Right.
I think allowed for quicker development as well.
Ooh, this might be where we bring it all together in regards to this. So you get into this sport, you have this learning curve, but you mentioned a couple minutes ago, one spot away from a national level spot.
Yeah.
So it feels like now that person who was starting off a few years ago is now a person in a position to get to a certain level or standard. Is there, how do you balance that? Like, it seems like it's that mentality. Does it still fit with where those possible goals are for the upcoming year?
I think so, honestly, and I think the reason why is because I still see myself as a hockey player. In all honesty, you know, it was 11 years of my life. I still see myself as a high-level goalie, even though, you know, some people who are still high-level goalies might disagree with that, but that's what I still see myself as. So the idea of training for this sport still, I'm starting to apply more expectations maybe. Mm-hmm. Because I'm, you know, I know where I want to get to, and, you know, I know what my performance can be, but it's still like, you know, only being 2 years in, I still have a bit of that breathing room of, okay, I had a bad meet. I'm still on the learning curve.
Gotcha.
So
gotcha. Yeah.
I think by just still being so young to the sport, I think it still works.
Gotcha. Hey, we're going to close things up unless there's some questions here. And again, as we're wrapping things up, doesn't mean that we're not going to take questions. So if you have questions, fire them on over. And we'll both take them on. We can converse or go back and forth with that person asking the question. I know things are going to get busy, especially come September and when you're actually performing come January. But I would love to have you back on again.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like especially with, and I think it's helpful for people to understand athletes who are in it, right? So
yeah,
and once you're back, I think a different perspective. It's just going to be you and your sport, and you're going to be back into it. It'd be great to just chat again and kind of see where you're at and just continue, because we could go on for a long time, you and but it'd be great to get you back in, almost kind of have a second part to this when you're training, almost kind of getting ready for competition, to kind of see how that return to play is, and get maybe what you're listening in regards to teammates or coaches, because right now it still seems like it's really early on and you're trying to make sense of everything. But I think in a few months it'd be great to have you on, just as you're in it, to kind of get your thoughts and give back to some of our listeners.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd like to.
Awesome.
Happy to.
Awesome. And it was great. Like, we've kind of kept in touch here and there along the way, but just even to see you, it made my day just to see you again. So thanks for coming on. We'll do this again. Hopefully we'll bump into each other on campus along the way too. Hopefully we're back and not doing just the distance learning stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're back fairly soon. But it'd be great to have you on again.
Perfect.
All right. Say hi to your old man for me too.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.